Welcome to Vision Chat, a podcast about spiritual topics, with your hosts, Virginia and Stina.
Welcome back to Vision Chat. Today, Virginia and I have a new guest, Megan Alisa. Megan Alisa is an evidential psychic medium. Her mission is to help those in need of guidance, healing, and proof that life continues after death of the body. She facilitates one-on-one private readings and public demonstration of mediumship. For psychic readings, she can also connect with spirit energy and offer practical guidance to empower people to make the best choices for everyday life issues. Megan also provides trance healing for those in need. She's also a teacher at the Oakbridge Institute. Welcome, Megan.
Thank you. So lovely to be here. I'm grateful to get to chat with you both.
Yeah, we're so happy to have you on. Do you want to start talking a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so I'm a teacher of mediumship development, psychic development. I'm mostly teaching courses and working with students that are either brand new to mediumship or have already been working within the realm of mediumship and psychism that need help basically to understand where their blocks are, how to move past them, and to truly build a strong connection with spirit so that they can be the best instruments that they can. So I do that. I also do, like you said, private readings and public readings, demonstrations, and I also make content. So I do a lot of teaching online for the general public to understand more about spirit and mediumship. And I really try to remove fear from the realm of spirit because I think it's really unnecessary and blocks people from that relationship. And also try to remove a lot of nonsense that's out there around the subject as well.
I noticed that you're specifically describing yourself as evidential psychic medium.
Mhm.
And just for people that don't know, can you can you break down like the
Sure.
evidential psychic medium part, and then just anything else that you align with, empath, healer, anything else that you like?
Sure. So I know some people that I know I really don't like the term of evidential psychic medium because really within the realm of psychism and mediumship, there should always be evidence. That should always be the case. However, because of where these subjects have kind of opened up a little bit further beyond that, there's a lot of concentration on things that aren't necessarily evidential. So things like past lives or, other things that are brought up that can't really be validated. So I stick to things that can be validated, which is why I call myself an evidential psychic medium. So I don't necessarily go into past live things or, that kind of thing. It should be something you can understand and say is true. So that's why I call myself that. And then as far as the energy healing that I do, so I do energy work through the trance states. So I also sit for trance mediumship and have for like 6 years, I think, at least at this point. And I basically move out of the way and allow a healing guide to come through me to bring the energy through to however it's needed for the person I'm working with. I also work with animals as well. So when I work either psychically or mediumistically, I can connect with animals and their consciousness too. It doesn't really make any difference. And that's basically what I do.
And the evidential piece, just to even further go into more detail, is
Yeah.
like you're literally saying things like your loved one was a paramedic, or,
Right.
like facts. You're stating facts about the person that you're reading.
Yes. So it would either be what we would consider list facts, something like everyone would know about them that knew them, or personal facts that only you would know if you had a relationship with them, right? Private things that were said, things that were shared, code words, nicknames, mannerisms, those kinds of things. I like to have evidence on both realms because I think that makes a well-rounded reading and helps to really paint the person back to life for the person that's coming to connect with them. And I think that's really the heart of why people come for readings, is to know and feel that again, that connection with their loved one, and to have certainty as much as they can that it really is them connecting through the medium and communicating for them.
Do you want to talk a little bit about when it comes to mediumship with the animals? That's
Sure.
very interesting.
Yeah. So when I do mediumship with animals, they come through just like people, really. I may see a kind of animal, I may see a description, I may get some kind of breed potentially, which is, you know, a little bit less likely just to I'm kind of building upon my breeds because there are so many breeds of different animals, but they have personalities just like people do. They have evidence about their life and how they passed and things that they did, things that were shared, things that have happened since their passing, right, with their loved ones. So I have readings that if your child essentially is your animal, that could be the whole reading. And I have had people literally come for that. And then I've had people where maybe their people are the ones that they're really wanting to connect with, but they still would love to hear from an animal, and their animal shows up just to give enough information to say that they're there. So it really just is going to vary per reading. Every reading is so very different. And I try to just be open to the need of spirit and the need of the person in front of me and follow their lead for that. And so whenever I'm working with an animal or a person, that's really my goal in mind.
That is very beautiful. How did you get into mediumship or like spirituality in the first place?
Yeah, that's a good question. I've always been interested in this realm. I didn't grow up religious at all. And actually, my father had an aversion to religion because he grew up as a pastor's son. So he wouldn't even step foot in a church, where I found myself wanting to explore different kinds of philosophies and religions. I was always drawn to ghost shows, ghost hunting things, anything to do with mediumship. I chose to go to a Catholic high school as a Jewish girl. So because I wanted to explore different kinds of concepts and understandings. So I kind of went that direction. And throughout my whole life, I'd always had experiences of different things that my parents didn't understand. So whenever I would bring up something, like let's say I got information and then it just happened right after, or I had other kinds of experiences like that, or I knew things that I shouldn't know, my mom would always say it's a coincidence. So I was kind of shut down in that way, but I never let that deter me from kind of knowing what my experience was, but I never really realized what it was, if that makes sense. So for a long time, there was sort of like a family joke that like I was psychic, right? Like, oh, she's psychic. But I was, and I just didn't really know like exactly what was happening. So basically, fast forwarding, my dad passed. My mother-in-law, who was my best friend, and my mom passed. Then my grandmother, who helped raise me, passed. And then basically after that all happened, I went to my first mediumship reading, and it kind of opened the door. And after that, I was having a lot of what I would call spiritual reawakening happening, where I was having a lot of the kinds of psychic experiences and sort of like spirit experiences that I'd had earlier in life happen more regularly. So that started happening. Again, didn't realize what was happening because, Hollywood makes everyone think that you're going to see like a Patrick Swayze standing there talking to you directly to have a spirit interaction. And that's not actually the case. It's a lot more subtle, but I didn't know. And I just knew something was happening. I just knew there was something happening. And I found myself, I don't know if you know the song Oceans, Spirit Lead Me song, by Hillsong.
Yeah, I love that song.
I love that song. So I was sitting in my car outside of a tattoo appointment, waiting to go in, singing that song, crying, and asking to be led. Like I was literally just like, help me, lead me. I don't know what's going on. And a month later, I was led to a metaphysical store that I would pass by when I would take my kids home sometimes. And I kept feeling prior to this, like a pull to the store, like, oh, I need to go in here. But then it never felt like the right time. It was just sort of like, I feel this sense of going here. Anyway, after that happened, all of a sudden I was like, I need to go here. And I went and I ended up getting a reading with a medium who said, you need to develop. Like, here's a flyer. Go to this circle and you need to develop. And it was for medium Michael Mayo, who I know you guys have interviewed before. And so it was the next night. It happened to be the next night. And I went. And I had no idea what to expect. And that night changed my life. I sat in the power and I felt just like immense energy happening. I actually volunteered, weirdly enough, to go up and demonstrate my very first night. mediumship development. I don't know, like something came over me. My mother-in-law had come through basically right before that. So someone sitting next to me went up to volunteer to do it, to try. My mother-in-law came through. And then all of a sudden, when he asked if someone else would want to try, my hand shot up. It was just like automatic without any thought at all. And he was like, okay, well, I don't usually have a brand new person come and try, but let's just see what happens. And I was like, okay. So it was like a group of like 20 people. So it was kind of a larger circle. Not usually like me to volunteer to do something like that, but he walked me through it and I felt a man come forward. I felt, I was aware of him. I was able to give information. And yeah, again, like that night changed my life. It changed the trajectory of my life. And it made everything that I had experienced up until that point in my life make sense finally. So I went hardcore. Like I just went like full throttle. I was at every circle. I mean, like for years, I was going to every circle more than once a week if I could. I started developing my trance. I started doing then also trance healing development. I went to Arthur Finley College a few times. I did workshops. I did everything I possibly could do to really dedicate myself. And I sat in the power every single day to letting spirit mold me and to help me on this path. And that's basically how it all started.
How long would you say that all took place over, like years, months? Like it sounds like it went pretty fast.
My development before I started kind of going out there working a little bit was about 2.5 years. But like again, like very, very dedicated, very I don't know I don't know if it was, so I worked with Michael, I worked with Eileen Davies, who's one of my mentors. I worked with Gordon Smith and a couple other random people, Arthur Finley College and other places, but it just all clicked for me. Like it just, not to say that it was not a struggle at times and frustrating and whatever, it just all kind of naturally happened. And I think it's because I already kind of had that, if that makes sense. I already had that sensitivity, that awareness just without realizing it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I was wondering, like, do you feel you kind of, after a lot of your family passed away, do you feel like it was like somebody call it the dark night of the soul, or like that you're waking up in a sense? Do you feel like that was like cracking you open?
I think that with their passings, the curiosity around, where are they? Are they still around? Like I always felt that there was spirit and like that was a thing and that there was an afterlife. I just felt like I inherently knew that. But, having that kind of stone to me, having that help me with my healing, and then wanting to help provide that for other people too. So I do think, I mean, it was the hardest, those were the hardest things I've probably gone through in my life, is the grief around those passings. And, they show up all the time. They come from my students all the time. They're, I hear from them a lot and obviously I feel them around, but they're very present in what I do. And I think that them being over there, not to say that that was like a part of destiny or whatever, but it was they have a hand in what I do. You know what I mean? They help in the ways that they can.
You took some pretty big risks going to a Catholic school. How did you manage to convince your parents to let you do that?
Well, I wanted to go to a good school, and luckily my best friend at the time also wanted to go. So we didn't know anyone else there. And well, what had ended up happening was the school that I was supposed to go to, which was a year-round private school, shut down in October, right before it was supposed to start. So school for everyone else had already started in September, right? So we kind of needed to act quickly, and we decided that's where I wanted to go. And they just kind of said, okay, fine. And so that's kind of how that all ended up taking place. And it was definitely an interesting experience. It kind of, rattled my own thought of myself in a lot of different ways. I kind of went through a goth phase. Well, I definitely went through a goth phase because I felt so out of place. I always felt a little, I mean, I always have kind of felt a little out of place and sort of like the oddball in a lot of ways in my life, like the black sheep or whatever. And so I think there it really just stuck out even more. And I kind of just, I don't know, I found my own way, but it was definitely, I'm not mad about the experience. I'm glad I had it. It was just very eye-opening, I think.
Yeah, it's a very unique experience to go to, I think, like a private Catholic school. And I say that because I also went to a private Catholic school and I went from like public school to Catholic school.
Mhm.
But I was brought up Catholic, and even then, I still felt very out of place.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah. And I was in the choir and I did handbells too, which I really liked. That's a very Catholic thing, like the handbells thing. I'd like asked other people, do you ever hear handbells? Like, have you ever heard of that? When I say I did handbells, they're like, what is that? I'm like, oh, but it's so fun.
do you have any stories like that you can remember from your childhood, like with spiritual things?
Well, yes, there are things. So it's actually kind of funny because my aunt told me after I already started developing. So this isn't technically a memory I have, she told me about, but when I was really little, like she said like 2 or 3, I think like 3, she said I was talking to my great grandmother who had passed before I was born and telling them things about her, and they never had told me anything. So there's like that kind of thing. And then, she was into like the Ouija board stuff. So that, she kind of helped me learn more about that. And we kind of did stuff like that as I was growing up. And then my grandmother taught me how to use a pendulum when I was 15. So they're kind of, a little witchy poo, like a little bit in that way, but my mom not at all. And there's so many different things I could share. So I would say one of the biggest things that happened is when I was 18, actually. I had 3 girls that I was friends with and I knew from high school that had passed in a car accident that I didn't know about. So what had happened was I was driving through an intersection, and this is like a big city, so it's not like a small city, but I was driving through an intersection. All of a sudden, I felt this incredible need to pull over at this gas station all of a sudden out of nowhere. And I did. I followed it. And when I got out, there was a poster with their 3 photos and candles and like information of what had happened. The night before that night I was there, they had passed in the intersection. A drunk driver had hit them while they were driving. And I have children now, even just like talking about it, I got just complete chills. And I was just like, oh my God, because why would I stop? Why would I stop and do that? I've never done that my entire life. Stopped at like a gas station like that out of nowhere. I didn't need gas. I just was like, I need to stop here all of a sudden and look and see what this is. And so that was probably my experience with spirit where I was like, okay, like there's something weird going on. So there was more of that kind of occurrence throughout my life. And then there was like times where they've saved me from fires. They've like there's stories.
Oh, that's intense.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
And again, I didn't really understand what was going on. Like I just followed along. You know what I mean? Like I had these feelings and I just trusted them and I just acted on them. And yeah.
Did you feel like scared at first, or did you feel like it was kind of comforting in a sense?
Yeah, not scared, more like wigged out. Like, what the hell's going on? You know what I mean? Never scared. I've never ever felt scared of spirit ever. I know that there's sometimes startling experiences and things that can happen with spirit, especially if there's any kind of physical phenomena or anything like that. But no, I'm lucky in the sense I think that I didn't have the religious upbringing that made me afraid of things to do with spirit. And I had the opportunity to kind of find that on my own. And yeah, I've only ever had positive, loving experiences with the spirit world.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I
Yeah.
was thinking a little bit because there's a lot of people that is afraid of the Bishop board, or sorry.
Do we? Mhm.
Yeah.
I know.
Do you want to talk a little bit about that or the fear around it?
So I know there's mediums out there that are like, don't touch it, it's bad and it's gonna, and I understand that you should know what you're doing, right? When you come to work with spirit, you should always have love in mind, positivity in mind to connect with the right thing. Because really that's how we connect to spirit, is through love, and have an understanding of, if you have interaction, that's not a bad thing. A lot of people get scared if they actually have interaction, whether that is the board actually, the planchette actually moving and spelling out something, or sometimes, like I've had, physical phenomena start to happen in the room around you because you are connecting in that way. And that freaks people out. So really the fear comes from, movies, right? Like the Ouija board movie and lots of other movies and religion and things like that. But really it's just a tool, and it's an inanimate object. It's a tool. And if you think that's scary, then why is mediumship okay? Like why is mediumship not scary if a spirit's literally blending in my energy and speaking through my body, through me? Why is that okay? But using a tool not okay? Or why are tarot cards okay? Why is a pendulum okay? Right? Like these are things people just need to sit with and ask these questions, and so they can dismantle the fear and have more understanding around it, because it's just another way for the spirit to have an opportunity to communicate. And while it's not a guarantee there's going to be communication, and sometimes you have to build up that energy, sometimes you're never going to really get clear communication coming through. It's just an opportunity, and that's really all it is. But yes, I do understand, people coming to a Ouija board to talk to like the Hat Man or like, this kind of stuff, or they're looking for fearful things, they're going to cause themselves to have fearful experiences psychologically. And that's more of an issue than anything else.
I remember when I was younger or like a teenager and stuff like that, and we used to use it, but like all of the people were like, "Oh, but you're getting haunted, like this is
Yeah.
not good." So I kind of had fear of mediumship and the boards or the
Mhm.
tools, I guess, around it. But it's
So-
like the opposite when you dive deep and understand it.
Right. So the spirit world is always around us, right? When we open to communicate with them, whether that's through a tool, right, through Ouija board, or just through speaking to them, it opens the door for us to have a communication. And because we start doing that, we become more aware of them, right? We pay more attention to that communication, more likely than not. So that's really all that is. In my opinion, in my experience, hauntings are residual energy left by people that are there, whether that is current people that are there or past people and experiences. Spirits don't stay stuck or stay or haunt you or become attached to you unless you have a connection to them. And then an attachment, right? A non-fear-based attachment would be, I have a connection with spirit, and that always exists, right? Whether I'm communicating with them, that's going to depend on where my attention is, right? If I'm paying attention to them, then I'm opening to that. If I'm not, I'm here in the physical world. I'm not even aware of them. And so people just need to understand what this is about, which is why I do all the teaching I do online as much as I can, to take away that fear and to have that understanding, because we don't need to have a necessary fear if we have actual understanding.
That kind of segues into the question that we like to ask people is like, what do you think is the biggest misconception of spirituality, or what do you think is the most misunderstood thing about mediumship, for example?
Gosh, that's a big list. That's hard for me to even. The biggest misconception is that it's scary, or that it's something negative or bad. It's all love. It's all love, and it's what we are. We are spirit just having a physical experience. We are already spirit right now, and a bigger part of us is already on the other side. And so we're denying ourselves. We're denying the truth of who we are by denying that mediumship is real, by denying that communication, and that we live on beyond this physical world. We do. And that has been shown to me over and over and over through thousands of experiences at this point, that we're okay over there. It's here where we have difficulty. It's here we suffer. It's here we have an experience. And it's for us. It's not to hurt us. It's for because we choose to, because we want to have all of the highs and lows of living a physical life, because it helps us have new experiences and learning. And so when people think, oh, you're communicating with demons, or you have some sort of bad spirit, or things like that, I'm just like, it's I know that one day those people will have their own understanding, because they'll pass and they'll get to see for themselves. They'll understand it. But until then, it's just unfortunate, because I think spirit communication, mediumship is not just about showing people that their loved ones are still there to help them with grief, though that's a big part of it. I think it's also about having the truth of the reality of that we live in, and how to live your life the best way we can. Because what mediumship shows us is that life is short. We don't know how long we're going to have. The people that matter to us deserve our attention and our presence, and for us to say what we need to say to them when we need to say it, instead of having to try to come through a medium after they've passed. So for me, mediumship is so much more about living and how to live well and how to have good communication with your loved ones, how to live life as fully as you can without fear, so you can truly be who you are, who you were meant to be in this life, which is your authentic self, without the fear of judgment of everyone else, to find your way to that place.
It's almost like living then your life without regret, if possible.
Yeah, I don't believe in regret. I believe that we learn through mistakes. And, I don't believe in failure. I believe in learning. I believe in taking what you've done and learned and moving forward with that. I think that, yeah, sometimes the things we do are painful and we sometimes hurt people unintentionally, sometimes intentionally. And we then have to face that and have accountability, just like we will in the spirit world, and to make changes. Here we get to make the changes. There, it's happened already. Right? So here we have an opportunity when you can really sit and face yourself and do the self-development, which is a huge, huge part of mediumship development, which I'm so grateful for. When you can sit in reflection without judgment of yourself and your actions and just take it as something to learn from, that helps change your life, and it helps to change how you see living in general.
I feel also there's so much growth and like perspective when you start developing or like going through a training. You're opening yourself up in a different way, and you're opening up to like see like people in a different side as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, it's when I start working with students in like foundations level 1, right? So like just the very beginning, I tell them this is going to, if you're willing to take this path and if you're willing to face yourself, if you're willing to go through the difficulty of development, you will become a better person. You will come out of this a different person, have a different view, and you will go through life differently, because that's absolutely true. Because you have to have vulnerability to do this work. You have to be able to put yourself aside. You have to be able to face all the issues that are coming up for you in your development, whether that's needing to control things or being afraid of someone's judgment or whatever the huge list of things I could talk about what that get in the way of development show up. Those are things that happen in our day-to-day lives too, right? All these things are a reflection. They all go back and forth. And truly, and what I always say is that through my mediumship development, it's taught me the best way to live. And that is through the same mechanics that we have in mediumship, which is really about letting go of an outcome, letting go of an attachment, letting yourself be in the moment and being moved moment to moment with an energy, with a stimulus, letting yourself play, letting yourself be open and flexible, and seeing where you actually are taken when you trust that journey. And I think that we're being led in that way all the time. We just don't realize it. And our brains, a lot of times, because it wants to keep us safe, want to control everything, want to force things. And we know in mediumship that doesn't work. That doesn't work at all. So when we kind of learn, okay, these principles within mediumship, what actually really helped me in my life, if I applied those here, you start to see ease, when you do apply those things, and you're like, okay, I get it. I'm getting it. Like, yes, we have free will. Yes, we have that ability to make choices and all that within this realm of, of surrender as well. But it's more about how do we respond? How do we respond to things? How do we move in parameters that are set around us? And how do we do that the best we can?
Do you have any experiences where you kind of surprised yourself or somebody else?
Oh, you mean like within evidence or all the
Yeah,
time?
just in general. Yeah.
All the time. No, I'm always surprised because my hope is to get out of the way as much as I can when I work and to really let that spirit come through as strongly as I can. And so sometimes the things that they say, the things that they talk about, the things that they bring up, I mean, like I would say almost every reading, I'm like, oh, wow, that thing came through or whatever. Definitely for sure. And then, I would say probably some of the more physical phenomena things that I've experienced are, more surprising as well. I try to just stay open, right? I just try to stay really open. And as one of my mentors, Eileen Davies, always says, to never limit a limitless power, and to truly just let myself be in that place of surprise, let myself be in that place of play with what I'm doing with spirit. And that keeps me in that place where I'm like, oh, wow, that's really is surprising. Oh, that's, very cool. That is a possibility to happen.
What advice would you give someone that's just starting to explore their skills or wants to get into mediumship?
Mhm. So I personally highly recommend a good development program. So whether that is monthly circles, weekly circles, doing a course like we teach, me and Michael Mann, I teach together the foundations courses, and having structure, I think, is really helpful, because I think having someone there that has a balanced, practical approach that's going to kind of cut out the BS of this stuff, and kind of keep it less on the woo-woo side, more on the like, what are the things that actually help me in this journey side, I think is most helpful personally. So I think being open-minded, obviously, to the fact that you're going to come up against yourself and there's going to be frustrations, trying to not rush the process, that's huge. So I know there's a lot of people that try to either bypass development or rush the process that are out there working that shouldn't be yet, and don't understand the ethical implications and responsibility of this kind of work. They don't know how to deal with and work with grieving people who deserve somebody that does understand that. And they do a lot of harm. So not trying to go beyond where you actually are, and being open to just being where you are in the process, and letting the time unfold for the full development, and to know that development never truly ends. It's a lifelong process. We're always students, we're always learning and growing. I think it's really important to come in with the right mindset around it, and not coming into it like, I want to be rich and famous, and I want to be on TV, and I want to go be the next whoever, and go up to random strangers and film myself for TikTok, doing unconsented for readings. And we really want to try our best to raise the standard of mediumship, and for people to understand the implications of what they're doing if they're going to call themselves a psychic medium and actually try to work with people.
That's one of the things that I really admire about Michael's program is, that the ethics part. And when we
Yep.
had him on, we were talking about that. It's like how, we have to talk about the ethics side of it, and how to just ask for consent, how to, take into consideration that people are coming in and they're extremely vulnerable. And as people trying to provide a mediumship service, we have to be ethical, and we have to take it very seriously.
Yes. And it hurts my heart, truly makes me angry at some of the things I see happening out there. I hear it from clients. I hear it from people on my TikTok, making comments that this medium told me my loved one was stuck and doesn't understand or doesn't know what's going on with them, or they're in a bad place, or they're in a low vibrational place, or whatever. Something that is so untrue, so unnecessary to say, so hurtful and harmful to someone who's grieving to say. And it makes me will want to for sure emphasize more importance on the education, right? The need for development, and how really, really important it is. And also for people that are consumers of mediumship to really do their work. Unfortunately, they have to look into who this person is, right? Watch them work, watch their videos, listen to them talk, look at, the reviews that hopefully are coming in, where you can see it's coming from an actual person, not just written out and whatever. Ask for, people word of mouth, right? Things you can find out about the medium. What's their education? What have they done? Why are they doing mediumship, right? I think these are things that are important for people to know, because I say, even for people that are like offering free readings, don't hand over your vulnerability to someone just because it's a free reading. They could do so much harm to you if you allow them to, right? If you let them tell you something, because there's a power dynamic that comes in when you say you're a psychic medium, and that you know things that another person doesn't, and the responsibility behind that is humongous. And I take that very, very seriously. And while I love to have fun within like my videos and try to teach with humor and that kind of thing, I take what I do as a teacher and as a medium very seriously.
It's so beautiful that you brought that up too, because it is one of the most important stuff. Like, you cannot really go to anybody and be like, oh, they said this, so this is true. But I feel also it's very in general, for no matter what psychic ability there is, it comes in a place where it's a lot of vulnerable people seeking out to something. And the power they have is like I don't know, a doctor and a patient, or like
Or
it's kind of the
therapist.
same. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think those same level of ethics need to be upheld. And I know we don't have a governing board here in the United States anyway to kind of make sure that's happening. I know in the UK there's some other sorts of things going on, but here we don't have that. And so it takes the person that is going to be doing the work to have the integrity and uphold those standards for themselves and for what they're representing, right? We're representing a whole lineage of people that came before us as mediums that worked tirelessly to have this be normal, right? To try to put this out to the world. And some of them had stones thrown at them, some were thrown in jail, right? They put themselves on the line so that we can be where we are now with this and have it be more normalized. And even though we still have pushback, and that probably will always be the case, it's something we need to think about. And also we're representing a whole unseen world, right? We're the voice for these unseen people and animals that are on the other side. And I think that if we don't consider that and we don't consider what we say, how we say it, I just think that that's so very sad, because I know we have such a huge potential to help people and to guide them and to bring peace and to bring, hope to them and some healing. And also we have the potential to do the exact opposite. And so I think we always have to remember that.
It's kind of exciting to hear, though, that in the UK, at least, it sounds like they're starting to do something like maybe get a board together. Is that what you were saying?
I don't know exactly the rules, so I'll just kind of say I don't know exactly what it is, but I know that, there's obviously a stronger spiritualist presence, right? So the SNU, and I know that there are some sort of more laws around psychics and things like that that are upheld in the UK. I don't know what they are exactly. So if anyone wants to correct me or say that, in the comments, feel free. So I just know that there's a difference in the United States versus like the UK.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Mhm.
For better or worse, right? If there's some
Yeah.
governing board, it can at least provide some more ethics, more training, or at least more pressure for people that want to get into this and provide it as a service for the public, that there's more responsibility.
Yeah, I think it's a slippery slope, because it is, so mediumship, the whole reason why spiritualism became a religion in general was to protect mediumship, was to protect it by law through religion, that we can have mediumship and have that be okay. So there's a slippery slope when it comes to power over religious practices, right? And spirituality. And I think that that's where it can get a little bit like, well, what's allowed and what's not and why and this and that. And I think that's where it can get a little weird. But I think having the ethical standard should apply either way.
Is there anything you would done differently on your journey looking back?
No, I don't think so. I think I learned everything that I needed to learn and to experience. And yeah, like I said, I'm not really one for regret. I think that things all happened the way that they were meant to, and that I learned and grew through those different situations. And I'm just excited to keep moving forward, just keep developing in my own way and sitting with spirit and seeing the potential there and helping people, right? And putting myself out there to do what I can to keep furthering the cause, essentially, and to touch every person I can as I can.
What are your next steps? Any plans for what you want to work on next?
So yeah, I would like to do some solo in-person mediumship demonstrations. So I would like to set some stuff up for that. So that's kind of in my next plans. Maybe do some more teaching. I teach a platform workshop that I know people have been asking me to do again. There's not a lot of platform emphasis in general. I went through training specifically for platform and to do that. So because it's its own kind of mediumship. And I think people get confused about that. I think that they think it's not any different from one-to-ones, and it really is very different. Yeah, but there's that. So, and also people have been asking me to open up my mentoring spots, my 2-to-1 mentoring spots again. So I just need to kind of, look into my schedule and figure that out. But just keep going out there doing it, basically, right? Just like forgetting about myself as much as I can and just showing up and trusting spirit.
Do you have any recommendation on books or podcasts or anything?
Yeah. So definitely I would say the 4 books I recommend the most are Spirit Speaks by Medium Michael Mayo, Intuitive Studies by Gordon Smith, Mediumship Touching the Stars by Eileen Davies, and Where Two Worlds Meet by Janet Nohavik. Those are the 4 that I typically recommend the most. If you're interested in, learning more about specific mediums of the past, right? There's a lot of different mediums. I personally think people that are into mediumship or developing mediumship should learn about their history, should learn about the history of spiritualism, even if you're not a spiritualist, right? It came from somewhere. What we recognize as mediumship today came from mediums of the past who were spiritualists for the most part. And so learning about different mediums and the things that they could do so that you can kind of see what's possible for you, right? And maybe even exceed that, but to kind of show the kind of quality of evidence and the things that they did and all that kind of thing, I think is also really good. So I'm not going to throw out names for that necessarily right now because there's like a ton of different ones, but that's that. And then my friends, Matt and Dana, have a podcast called I'm a Medium, Ask Me How. That's a good one. There's a podcast that if you do actually want to learn more about the early American spiritualism and how it started, there's one called the Unobscured Podcast Season 2, and it's all about the history of that, which I think is really, really fascinating. I do have YouTube as well, where I do have not as many videos, not nearly as many videos there as I have on TikTok, but I do have some educational videos for development and stuff on my YouTube.
Cool. So we know you do have your TikTok account, which is great. What else? Where else can people find you? So you, YouTube as well. Where else can people connect with you, find you, and what would you like to offer to people?
I'm also on Instagram, but my name on Instagram is different from everywhere else because this name was actually given to me by Spirit, and I just couldn't let it go. I was when I very first started my Instagram, so it's She's Got a Rebel Heart. That's my Instagram name. And just be careful if you look me up on TikTok or there, wherever, make sure it's the right spelling and that it has the most following account if there's other fake accounts, because there's a ton of fake accounts of me and other mediums out there. And unfortunately, they scam people and it happens all the time, no matter how much I talk about it. So just be very mindful of that. And then also you can find me on my website. So that's at meganalisamedium.com. And that's the only place people can schedule an appointment with me, only through my website. You can find out more about me there. If you're interested in working with me and learning with me, you can do that at oakbridgeinstitute.org. And that's where we have all our courses, circles, events, and all that are available there online. And then any events that I have coming up, whether that's any kind of like in-person workshops or demonstrations or anything like that, I will most likely post on my website if I remember. It's also sent out through my newsletter. And yeah, that's pretty much how you can connect with me.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Thank you so much for joining the podcast. We really appreciate your time. And it was a joy having you on.
Oh, thank you so much. It was a joy being here and chatting with you both. And I'm very grateful to have the opportunity. So thank you.
Thank you for listening to Vision Chat. You can find more about us at visionofprofoundhealing.com, where we offer readings, courses, and classes.